forgive me if I pass on this one right now. I think the Secretary General, the High Commissioner. We are all appealing to the parties to not let that situation escalate to the point where literally thousands of people will be killed. And every step that the United Nations has been taking in the context of this conflict is to try and de-escalate, to find humanitarian corridors, to find creative solutions to political impasses in order to protect men, women and children. The images of the last few days have been a stark reminder that on the front lines of this war, children are actually paying the ultimate price. It is catastrophic, often in terms of simply death, but also in terms of being maimed, in terms of being deprived of education, in terms of starvation. This is a conflict that must end. Communities up and running again, connecting, This, as we call it, situation with migrants is one that has been unfolding tragically for a number of years now. I think just in the last few weeks, again, the international community has been witness to a kind of desperate hopelessness, first on the part of those who are trapped along the way of this migrant trail, but also a kind of sense of not knowing what to do next on the part of many of the governments on the other side of the Mediterranean. And I think one of the things that my colleagues who head the International Organization on Migration and the High Commissioner for Refugees have made very clear is that sending people back who have been rescued into Libya under the current circumstances is not something that anybody should consider a viable option. We saw just a few weeks ago how through a bombing a camp with migrants was also targeted and a number of them died. The solution to this challenge at the moment is both political in terms of the larger agreements between Europe and member states of the European Union. But the United Nations is currently engaged in Libya on the ground despite the fighting, including our United Nations Development Programme team, because the fighting around Tripoli has not prevented us from trying to undertake stabilization measures across the country. This is a nation that is struggling to have a functional government, that is divided, that is in many respects unable to provide the fundamental functions of the state. We must build and rebuild the capacity of Libyan institutions, the rule of law, of government, in order to be able to manage also borders and the trafficking that is so brutally taking place with many migrants right now. To lock them up in Libya right now and somehow hope that this problem will go away is turning away from a very brutal reality. And I think that is why particularly the High Commissioner for Refugees has appealed to the international community not to do this. And others in the UN have spoken, I'm sure, over the last few days again